California parents want Newsom's hypocrisy out. California parents, at least one of whom voted for Governor Gavin Newsom, loudly support the recall effort against the Democrat due to his restrictive COVID-19 policies on schools. They fear that should Newsom survive the recall Tuesday, he will impose even stricter policies, subjecting children to prolonged and unnecessary suffering.
Jonathan Zachreson, founder of Reopen California Schools and a father of 3 who lives in Placer County, explained the evidence that shutting down schools has had a devastating impact on children. Savona described multiple times when it seemed schools would reopen, only to shut down once more. Schools originally closed in March 2020 and did not reopen for the remainder of the school year. In the summer of 2020, Newsom promised that he would allow local control, but when some schools planned to open, the governor added schools to a color-coded tier chart that effectively kept them closed, Zachreson recalled. Several schools chose not to reopen, and Newsom allowed that. In January 2021, the governor again changed the rules, making it harder for schools to remain open.
Finally, in March 2021, a judge issued a temporary restraining order that forced Newsom to drop many of his reopening rules. Even now, schools maintain various restrictive policies, including mandatory face masks, routine COVID-19 testing and mandatory quarantines. Meanwhile, Newsom, already infamous for dining maskless at the French Laundry restaurant in violation of COVID-19 restrictions in November 2020, sent his 4 children to a private school that opened for in-person instruction full-time in November 2020, and he sent his son to a mask-optional summer camp this past summer, where photos of his son maskless and inside surfaced in July 2021. Newsom pulled his son out of the camp, but the damage had been done. Davison condemned the hypocrisy of him sending his son to in-person education, which indicates that he didn't think it was unsafe to return to in-person learning last year. How do you justify one school being able to open, and the other not? Zachreson asked, noting that the rules for in-person learning appeared to fit Newsom's personal needs. Bryant noted that he could not afford to send his children to private school, while Savona, whose husband is a physician, lost the opportunity due to the shifting standards of Newsom's restrictions. Daniela Bloom, a licensed psychotherapist in Los Angeles who took her 3 kids out of the Los Angeles Unified School District, called Newsom the ultimate example of do as I say, not as I do. Each of the parents firmly supported the recall. Those with school-aged children are more likely to support the recall than those without, he added. This is not a Republican recall. This is a bipartisan recall, Bloom said. She argued that Democrats are distracted with vilifying the conservative opponents as opposed to defending Gavin Newsom's actual record, because there's nothing to defend, between the homeless crisis, the rise in crimes, and the stronghold of the teachers' unions holding our children's education and livelihood hostage. Zachreson, Davison and Savona supported Kevin Kiley, a Republican in the California State Assembly, who spoke passionately about reopening schools. Yet each of the parents also expressed worry that if Newsom survives the recall, he will impose even stricter COVID-19 restrictions. A lot of parents fear that Newsom has only allowed schools to be open in the fashion that they are now because of the recall, and that if cases increase this winter, he would impose school closures, Zachreson said. We fear that he's waiting to do more until after the recall. We feel that he will do a big FU if he's successful. We like lockdowns on Thursday. That's what's going to happen, Bloom warned. Davison attributed these poor policy decisions to the delusion that COVID is going to go away. He laid out 3 general policies that are still in place at many schools across California, policies which Davison is fighting against and which Newsom would likely worsen if he survives the recall. Davison said he opposes mask mandates, arguing that there is a ton of evidence the mandates make no difference for case rates in schools. He also opposes the policy of mandatory quarantines for children who may have gotten exposed, and he opposes asymptomatic testing. He noted situations in Oakland and at Rice University where false positives on COVID-19 tests briefly upended students' lives. Davison argued that these policies are not based on kids' actual risk of transmission and infection but an exaggerated fear of COVID-19. They are so obsessed with eliminating COVID that they can't see past the issues and they think it's worth whatever harm comes to the kids from not being in school, so long as they never get COVID, he explained. Yet he argued that it's better to keep them in school, even if there's a small risk that they're going to get COVID. Bryant also described a situation in which his daughter's entire class got sent home due to a failure in contact tracing. The class had a possible contact on a Friday. That weekend, the kid tested positive. On Monday, they sent the kids home. They said they couldn't perform contact tracing, whole class sent home for a week. The district sent home almost 400 kids for quarantine while it imposed restrictions on 900 other kids. In-school transmission is zero. They are over-restricting, over-quarantining, the father said. He condemned CDPH. I give it a new name, the California Department of Public UN Health, or CDPH, he said. They're not actually following any real science, they're just making it up as they go. We should stop these restrictions that we would otherwise never do for a common respiratory virus, Davison argued. He noted that trying to keep up with everything on COVID is exhausting. This should be the health department's job to keep up with this and come up with policies, but it seems like they're just so politically motivated that they don't really care what the science is and whether or not they're following it, he said.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe,